Thank you for joining me for Sampler Sunday. Today we're going to have a palette play with the Penguin Sampler. You can find this for free on our website. So what we have here is a color wheel and then the palette for the Penguin collection. And what I want to do is first go over this paper with you and then we'll look at the color wheel. So this is set up into 4 different sections of papers. We have the painted papers here, and then 3 sections of pattern papers. You can see that the same patterns are used in each of these 3 boxes. These are the darker value, meaning the darker colors, the lighter value papers, and then the grayscale papers. I've already gone ahead and cut out these strips for today, and we have a getting started video if you want to check that out so that you can be prepared for these Sampler Sunday sessions. So I'm going to move this aside, and we're going to take a look at the color wheel for the Penguin collection. And all of our collections have a limited color palette. So what that means is that we're not using all the colors, although there may be some in the future that we use all the colors, but for the most part, we're just using some of the colors. And for the Penguin, we're using the analogous colors from yellow, green to purple. And all analogous means is that they're right next to each other on the color wheel. So in this limited palette, we're also, if you take a look at this, this is the cool colors. The cool colors live down here, and then these are the warm colors. Cool colors, if you're trying to remember them, they're the colors that you would see in the earth and in the ocean, so the grasses and water. And then the warm colors is the colors of the sun and sunsets. So I'm going to move this to the side and we're going to take a look at the color spectrum collage panel. This is something I recommend anytime you're starting with one of our palettes is to create one of these, and I have a video linked below. But this is another way to look at the palette by going in order along the color spectrum. The first step for creating these, and this is going to help us today, is to organize the strips of paper along the color wheel. So we have the greens. This is a bluish green. You got blue and then purple. So I'm going to align all of these. This is a yellow green, and I'm going to continue setting all of these papers down. We have, again, lighter and darker values. It doesn't matter where you place them, whatever feels right to you. I could place them in between or on the side, but we're just really focusing on the color, not the value when we're laying these down. So actually I want this more on the blue side, this on the teal, which is the blue-green. And then for today, we can set our black and white grayscale to the side. In doing the color spectrum collage panel, all I did here, this is a 4 by 8 inch piece of chipboard, and then I glued them down in order. So starting here and then moving along the color wheel like that. What I'm going to do now is to take these strips and just place them in clusters. So we have the greens, the teals, the blues, and the purples. I'm going to move the color wheel to the side. So again, our limited palette is yellow, green to purple. And what we're going to do for this palette play is to limit our palette even more on a 4 by 4 inch substrate. I'm using a chipboard here, and you can take a look at the resource down below for substrates. It gives some other ideas like paper. You can use cardboard. There's a number of different things, so you can take a look at that. I'm working here on a silicone craft mat because it's easy to clean. I have my Mod Podge here. I use matte Mod Podge, and I have my brush. I have a pair of scissors, and then I also always have a wet and dry cloth anytime I'm doing collage. just to keep my hands and my workspace clean and dry. So for this palette play today, what we're going to do is start with picking 2 different colors. So here, for example, I could choose the green in any one of these. And for this one, I'm going to just choose this. And then our other 2 colors are going to be these 2. And what we're doing is just playing with how colors look together. If you're looking at the color spectrum collage panel, we've chosen green, or I've chosen green and the blues. So there's a separation, there's a teal in between. So these 2 are not analogous to each other. And then I chose another grouping, the teal and the purple, that are also not analogous. Anytime you're getting further away from each other on the color wheel, there's going to be a little bit more contrast. So for example, when I choose the green and the purple, that's the most contrast within this palette. If I chose green with the teal, they're closer because these are analogous. So they're going to be more in harmony. They're going to blend more. There's going to be a lot less contrast. So this exercise today is a really fun way to explore how colors work together. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and choose one of these to start, and it doesn't matter which I choose. I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. And I'm going to end up gluing this down, but what I like to do with that first piece is cut off a little piece or tear it off so I have a little bit left over just in case I want to lay this down on the collage as well. I like to have 2 pieces if I can. So now what I want to do is coat the back. And again, I told you I'm working on a silicone mat. Sometimes I glue directly on that, but one of my preferred things to do is just to take a scrap of chipboard, because then I don't have to keep on washing off my silicone mat. So I'm going to just put the glue on, and I'm only going to need the 4 inches, but I'll show you why. I'm going to suggest that you put the glue up as far as you can. You don't have to go all the way to the top, but what we want is for even the overhanging pieces to be glued together. And I'll show you why at the end, why we're doing it that way. So the next thing I want to do is choose my next piece. And I'm going to pull out, I've already done a number of these. So here's a bunch of different examples of this so you can see where we're headed. But if I look at the blues and greens here, one of the rules I set up for myself when I did this one is to go green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue. And I wanted to see how that worked. And you can go ahead and do the same thing. So if you're going to follow this, the next color you're going to do is one of these. What I'm going to decide to do in this one is I'm going to just make a decision as I go and not limit it to that pattern. So I'm going to just make a decision as I go. Do I want the same color or a different? And do I want a similar value or different? And these are all a little bit different anyhow. So we have a dark value, light. This is somewhere in between. So here I'm going to go with a darker value in the same color is what I'm deciding. And I'm going to tear this piece. The other decision is to tear or to cut. So I tore this piece, and you can see that as I tore it, there's a white edge along the border, which I did purposely. And I'll point out how to do that, how to tell where that white's going to end, because there's no white on this edge, but there is on this one. But let's lay this down. I'm going to do that again since I was talking. I didn't have enough glue on there to slide it. And I'm gluing it all the way beyond, making sure it's secure up there too. Now I want to decide, do I want to use the same color palette again? I could repeat a color I've already used, stay with the blues, but at this point I think I'm going to move on to this greenish yellow, the yellow-green background. And again, I'm going to tear this one. The way to know which side is going to have that white on it, it's going to be the side that you're holding down. So this thumb is holding the tearing hand. So my left hand here will not have the white on it. The white will be on the side that's holding the paper, and then one that's tearing will not have the white. So that's the simple trick to know which one's going to have the white. So now again, gluing that down, I'm going to make a decision. Do I want to switch over to the blues, or do I want to stick within this yellow, green, and green palette? And do I want to go lighter, darker? And I'm going to go with this one here. And maybe I'll cut this one. So with each decision, I'm just making a decision whether I want it to be similar or different. So I did I tore, now I cut. So that's going to add a little bit of difference within my collage. Putting down the Mod Podge and then laying it down. So we have differences in color, value, the way we cut and tear. And then the other difference within these strips is how wide and narrow we want to go. Making the decision for the next one. Do I want to go another within the green, or do I want to switch to the blue? And I'm going to switch to the blue. And I'm going to do this one a little bit more narrow. And I want the narrow piece to have that white edge. So I'm going to tear with my left hand again. And then glue this down. So I chose a piece that's a little bit lighter in value. And then again, so I'm just going across, making decisions. Do I want to use another blue? And at this point, I'm thinking I do want this one because it's nice. We have this pattern here, and I do want to bring it back. So placing this one. And for the next piece, I haven't used this one yet, and this might look nice because I'm using the same pattern right next to each other, the stripes. So I'm going to tear this, and just to show you, because I've been holding with this, I'm going to hold with this and show you that it's the hand that's holding it that's going to have the white. So it doesn't matter which hand I'm using. The one that's tearing will not have the white, and the one that was holding has the white edge. I'm going to end up flipping this. I can decide if I want, I'm really liking the white edges, but if I don't, I could use this piece. And maybe for this one, I'll use this piece. And then glue it down. So at this point, what I did, and I don't know if you can see it, but I haven't been using my wet and dry cloth, so I ended up with a smudge on there, which may or may not come out, and it probably won't. So anytime you're getting glue on, you can end up with smudges if you're not keeping those hands clean and dry. And I'm not going to worry about that because this is collage. I can collage over that. I'm just going to try to remember to keep that in mind with washing my hands. I was getting busy in my design process and I didn't do that. So sometimes just having this closer and just cleaning after each one. So I could complete this with a wider strip. Do I want to go back to the green? Maybe I want to do blue. So I think I'm going to do that. I liked how that looked. And for the final piece, do that. If I do this one, that looks actually kind of cool. If I have an even thinner blue there. So I'm going to go with that. So just sliding it a bit. And I slid it a little bit too much so that some of that substrate is showing. So I just moved that over. Okay. And that's it. So this is complete. I'm going to lift it up. And I'll show you why I'm interested in doing this. I wanted this to all be stuck together, but it didn't. And I could leave it like that, but there is a specific use I want to do for this. So I'm actually going to do something I haven't tried. So these, if I cut them, they're not going to be attached. What I'm going to do is put some glue back here. I can take this scrap piece and put it across. So this is something I have not done before, but just realized that I can do to keep that all together, okay? So I just pieced it, used this as a bridge. And then the step here is to cut it. We're going to cut this off. And then we're going to clean up the edges just with this large pair of scissors. So I'm just following along. Just like that. And then the last step, whenever we're collaging, is to coat the paper. We want to make sure there's a protective coat of Mod Podge on top. This will allow us to add acrylic marker, paint. It protects the paper from little spills on it. And then the other great thing is it really brings out the brilliance of the collage paper. So we're going to go ahead and let this dry. And then we'll let it dry. I'm going to clean up and then I'll be right back. All right, I'm back and everything is dry. So here's the piece, and this is the piece that we cut off. And then comparing it, I already lost it, to the other blue and green one I made. So I'm kind of liking this one because I have little clusters of harmony with the yellow, green, and the blues together. And you can see I actually changed the orientation. So we designed it like this. Can't remember. We designed it like this, going from this way. This was our last piece. But then it's nice to kind of turn it and see how it looks in different ways, different orientations. So the colors, you'll have 2 color collections left. So I would recommend going ahead and doing that. I'll show you the one that I practice on. These are my purples and teals. So any color combination, as I mentioned. And then for this piece, what I like to do is just see if I want to bring it back into a collage. So if I want to turn this into more of a landscape type of collage, and a lot of times when I'm doing landscapes, what I'll do is I'll take paper strips like this, and then I'll lighten the top, and then do something like this here. So I have my vertical strips in the back, I lighten the background, drew the flowers, and then I have strips of paper. So that leads me back to this piece here, and you can use it. So again, it was here. You can actually flip it over and have that be your contrasted piece down below. So here, yeah, it blends a lot, but if you end up lightening this with the acrylic paint, this would look pretty cool together, but then you could also use it on one of your other pieces. So this is why I like to save these. They're just really fun things to try to fit back into your collages. So I hope you have a lot of great ideas on combining colors in this palette play today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in our next Sampler Sunday.